all of us connected as one, because there is only that one energy that began what we know to be what we might call our universe, one source of everything. Everything. Every energy comes from that one source. I am of it. We are each of it. And as we name what it is peace, it is love, it is joy, it is wisdom, it is generosity and grace. Above all, through it all, it is love. Love because love grants freedom. Love grants us the chance, the choice to make our own decisions about it, to live with those consequences and to live with those choices, and then to change again, and to grow and evolve. And it's an upward spiral, and I'm so grateful to know that. Every decision, every choice I make, every day, I can and do learn from and grow, because that's what I'm here to do as an expression of spirit. That is what each of us is here to do as an expression of spirit. We are here to learn and grow without end, with all the possibilities, without end, without limit. Overflowing with love today, overflowing with prosperity, overflowing with happiness, overflowing with joy, overflowing with grief, overflowing with sadness, overflowing with whatever. It's all still spirit, as each of us, and none of it's bad. It's always just good in the evolving. On this day before Memorial Day, remembering the past as a way of learning and moving forward in the future, not so that we are shackled to it, but so we grow from it. The past becomes fertilizer for our future, if we so choose. So I choose today to know only more, bigger, better, faster, stronger. Steve Austin's got nothing on this. And I am so grateful to have this awareness, to have this, not just awareness, but this complete and total understanding. It's almost a decision. I've decided that's the way it'll be, and so it is, and so it is, and so it is, and so it is. So please take a few minutes to contemplate this, etc., etc., etc.
So our year-long theme is, as Brent so wonderfully referred to, growing deeper, rising higher. And actually the global version of it, team is the opposite of that, rising higher, growing deeper. But when Buffy and I were kind of working this out last year, we said, no, first you got to grow deeper. And then you rise higher. Yeah. And so that's kind of our theme. And we've been looking this whole month about raising our voices. And today we're looking at the idea of overcoming silence. Overcoming silence. So raising our voices has been, as I've mentioned before, kind of the idea of not just yelling loudly. Okay, we can all do that, yes?
Yeah. Yes.
Right. Yeah. And so we can do that, but does it really serve? And so the way that I've been inviting us to approach that is raising the consciousness with which we express from our voice. Raising our voice, if you will, in that respect. So overcoming silence. I'm going to suggest that the first thing we need to do to overcome silence is something that sounds the opposite of that, which is go deeper into the silence. Go deeper into the silence. I'll talk a little bit later about where we get stuck, where we don't express ourselves. But part of that is because we don't feel, we don't identify with, we don't resonate with our own inner power that we have. And so the place we find that power is not by going out, but by going within. And finding that power within us, finding that essence, that vision of who I am and what I am here to do, what is mine to do. And so when I know this vision, I can express it. And a couple of quotes that I have, Zenzu Earthlyn Manuel in her book Opening to Darkness says, "We are not on a quest to gain a vision, but to allow the vision of our life, which is already present, to emerge from where it has always been." So as we go into our silence more deeply, it's allowing and getting in touch with that vision that already exists within each of us. Nudge your neighbor and say, yes, you really do have an inner vision. Yes, you do really have it. And then Carol Hedges says, our purpose is that which we most passionately are when we pay attention to our deepest selves. Our purpose is that which we most passionately are. And each of us has most likely at some point in time been passionately doing something, involved with something, being something, and it's usually when we're in touch with something deeper within us, yes? Okay. And so that's what we're looking for here. And so our goal with this going inner, going deeper into the silence is to awaken and to experience, embody, and express the divine nature within us. And that's why it's experience. This is kind of the way our mission statement is structured also, to learn, live, and share spiritual principles. It's to experience it and then embody it, take it into where it becomes us, to where I am this, and then to allow it to express out. That's the allowing our voice to speak. And our voice is not necessarily our voice, but our essence and our how we are in the world to speak. So we're here to awaken to the experience, the embodiment, and the expression of the divine that each of us is. When we experience when we talk about the idea of growing deeper, rising higher, we think of a seed. I think of a seed that goes into the ground. And the first thing that happens when the seed goes into the ground is it shoots up and says flowers right away, right? No. It sends roots down deeper into the ground, yes? And it gathers nourishment. It establishes a base. It establishes a foundation. You know, if you're going to build a skyscraper, you don't build the skyscraper first and then build the foundation. That would be a dangerous thing to do, yes? And so we go deeper. We go into that depth of who and what we really are. We send our roots deeper. So I want to invite us to do a little meditation, a little process for a moment, to kind of have an experience of that. And so I invite you to take a deep breath. Let yourself just be aware of yourself in the chair. Put your feet flat on the floor if you want to. Take another deep breath and just relax. And take a moment to contemplate on the things that in your mind and perhaps in others' minds have come to define you, who you are, your roles in life. So feel what you do with your days and say, I am more than my work. Feel where you sleep and say, I am more than where I live. Feel who you love and say, I am more than my relationships. Feel all you have suffered and say, I am more than my history. feel your very name and say, I am more than my name. Feel your breath entering and leaving your heart. And feel the face you had before you were born. Take a breath and say to yourself, without history or name, I am the flame of life living in and as this body. I am the flame of life living in and as this body. Joseph Campbell reminds us that we must be willing to let go of the life we planned so as to have the life that is waiting for us. Take a deep breath. And when you're ready, gently allow your attention to return to the room and open your eyes. When we let go of all the stuff, all the identifications, all the who we think we are, who others think we are, all the titles, all the stuff, all the past experiences, we start to understand that there's something, an essence of who I am, who you are, beyond that. Yes? I am this, but I'm more than this. I am this title, I am this role, I am this name, but I'm more than this. And so this going into the silence, going into the darkness, going deeper within, is to find and hear and feel that name, that essence, that who I am. And that establishes us in our power, our authentic power of who we are, not just the stuff out here. If you're like me and if you're like most people, you grew up learning what pleased people and what displeased people. And you spent a whole lot of your time trying to please people and trying not to displease people, especially when you were children, yes? And then when you became a teenager, you started spending time on how to displease people. You know? The opposite of that. Neither one of those gets us to our authentic self. And so this is a time that we take, and I invite you this week to continue to do that, to go in deeper. Who am I really? Who am I without this? Who am I without that? Who am I without all these identifiers? All these things and ways that I think of myself. Who am I as not a minister? Who am I as not a housewife or a mother or a daughter or a sister or a husband or a friend? Who am I without all of that? So the next thing I want to talk about is power. Power. We have an aversion in our society to the word power. We oftentimes don't like it. And part of that is because we misunderstand power and we misconstrue it with the idea of control. The idea that I can manipulate or somebody can manipulate other people or situations, usually to fulfill their own insecurities and to make sure that they don't have to face them. Yes? And control really comes from a sense of powerlessness. And so I do these behaviors to manipulate and control. And that happens of just how I am with my spouse, my children, my neighbor. It happens on the global level of how we do politics and how we do oligarchies, if you will, and all that. All that is to cover over powerlessness. So that's not the power that I'm talking about. The power that I'm talking about is more the ability to create. If you just go to engineering or physics, they define power as just simply the ability to get things done, the ability to create. So power is one of the 7 main aspects of God that Thomas Troward, who was a New Thought writer in the early 1900s, who was a major influence on Ernest Holmes, and one of my favorites, talks about it. He has 7 main aspects of God. And the first of those is life. Because without life, well, there's nothing else, right? Yes? Okay. So life. And these 7 main aspects of God are not just what something out there is. This is the essence of us. This is your and my cells of our being. Each of us is these 7 main qualities, individualized. So the first one is life. Without life, nothing else happens. The second one is love. And love, Trower says it's love is simply the desire of this infinite consciousness to express more of life for the joy of it, for the enjoyment of it. If I love somebody, I want them to be happy, yes? I want them to be able to enjoy something, more so. And so love is that second main aspect. The third main aspect, Troward calls light. And by light, he simply means the ability to see all possibilities and all the consequences of all possibilities. What I might call infinite knowledge, infinite wisdom, infinite knowingness. Yes? So it's the ability to see all that. This is, when we do things like visioning, we've got a visioning class going right now, and to tap into that infinite wisdom that is higher than us is to tap into that which can see beyond, my own blinders of, here's all that I can see. We all have that because we're finite beings, living in a finite world, and so there's more to it than we can see, yes? So the third one is this infinite knowingness. And then the fourth aspect of God, the pivotal aspect of the 7, if you will, is power. And power is that which takes the first 3, life, love, and this infinite wisdom, and creates, focuses, makes something happen as a result of that. You can have life and love and light, or wisdom, and it can just sit there. I'm in love, I'm in light, I'm in life, until we make something happen, until something is created, until something is expressed. We don't get the other 3. And so once this power expresses, it creates peace. Because if you've ever had something within you that needs to get out, needs to be expressed, you're not at peace until you finally express it, yes? And so there's a sense of peace. There's a sense of, I'm doing what is mine to do. And then from peace comes beauty. And from beauty comes joy. And I love how Trower does this as a flow, so that the purpose of life ends up as joy. You and I are here for joy. Whether we remember it or forget it, whether people around us remember it or forget it, that still is our divine purpose and divine existence. And so when we tap into that, we tap into that essence of who and what is trying to express and be through us. But power is that pivotal place where we allow it to happen, where we say, yes, I'm going to call this forth. This is what we do when our practitioners do a spiritual mind treatment. It's to call forth something. We have a couple of stages. God is all there is, and I'm one of that. That's the first 2 stages of a spiritual mind treatment. But Ernest Holmes says that the purpose of a treatment is to create something, to be creative. Otherwise, we're like the artist who sits in front of their canvas with all the paints and the brushes and the blank canvas and just sits there and looks at the paints and the brushes and the blank canvas. And nothing happens. It's not until we say, I'm going to make a landscape, I'm going to make a portrait, I'm going to make a still life, I'm going to make an abstract thing that, I don't understand, but I'm going to let it happen anyway. And we pick up the paints and the brushes and start to create and start to express the power. And so that is raising our voices in moving out of the silence, moving out of the fear-based silence, the stuck-based silence that says, oh, don't say anything, play safe. Who are you? Who do you think you are? And say, no, I am the power. This is why we go below that. We go beneath that and go to the deeper silence and say, no, the authenticity of who I am is God in form. And I do get to speak this into existence because this is the desire of the universe through me. And it's important to understand the desire of the universe rather than my own little petty desires, my own little, I want to get back at so-and-so, right? So a lot of, when people talk about raising their voices, it's sort of a knee-jerk reaction to, well, that person did this or this group did this, so let me do that in response to that. It's not coming from who am I authentically. It's not coming from who am I authentically. So our purpose must express. We must express our purpose, or it sickens us. There's a line in the Gospel of Thomas where Jesus says that which is within you, basically, I don't remember the exact quote, but must be expressed. And if you express it, it makes you more alive. And if you don't express it, it kills you. Yes? And so we're being called to, and each of us knows what that is. And it's not just one little thing that, once I do this, I'm done. No, it's the variety of who I am. It's these guys do music, but they also do more than music. They do creating a toy store that people enjoy. That Brent does, whatever else he does, besides music, and all that. I do things besides being a minister. I like to cook, so it's allowing that expression, that honest expression, that authentic expression of who I am out. Not shouting it, but living it, expressing it by our very beingness. I've shared this story before that back in around 1979 or 1980, I had a friend who was trying to get me involved in a particular personal growth seminar. And my friend was metaphor that came to me yesterday morning. I was sitting out I love this time of year because I can sit in my backyard and meditate first thing in the morning. And there's lots of birds and some squirrels, are running around. And my friend was, to me, sort of like the birds and the squirrels. She was always into something new, into something woo-woo, unless you got to do this. And so, I being kind of the stubborn, grounded kind of person that I was, especially back then, I'm not now, thank God. And don't you dare disagree with me. I listened to her, and it just kind of went over my head. A few months later, her husband, they lived in Hawaii, I was living in Los Angeles at the time, her husband showed up, called me up and said, I'm in town, love to have breakfast with you, love to buy you breakfast, which was uncharacteristic of him. And I said, sure. And I remember, we set up a meeting, and I was sitting outside my apartment waiting, when he pulled up, and he worked in a shipyard, and so he pulled up in the shipyard truck. Nothing impressive, right? Just a beat up shipyard truck wearing white t-shirt and jeans, so nothing impressive. And the minute he stepped out of that truck, I remember feeling him and saying, whatever he's got, I want it. He didn't have to yell and shout and scream. He didn't have to speak the most eloquent words. He was expressing it. He was expressing his voce, his voice, simply by his beingness. And that's where, when we overcome silence, we don't have to yell and scream and jump up and down. We start to live our authentic self, and our authentic self itself speaks, lights, brings out who and what we want to be. So what I'm inviting us to do is to overcome our fear of being who we fully are, to let that go, to go deeper, to find out who are you really. And so that's a spiritual practice I'll invite you to this week, is to spend some time this week sitting there going, there is a vision within me and I'm willing to hear it. There's a vision within me and I'm an authentic self within me and I'm willing to know it. Not know about it, know it. Not keeping it isolated with my thoughts, but knowing, viscerally experiencing that authentic self. Jesus also said, ask and it shall be given unto you. Knock and the door shall be opened. Seek and you will find. So as we simply ask the universe, as we simply seek for this, as we seek within this deeper self of us, it will show itself to us. And I will say that sometimes it will show itself to us in ways that we don't like. It'll be a 2x4 across the back of the head, yes? And the thing to do is not get mad at it, but to pay attention and say, what is it that I'm being called to awaken to about me? So are you willing to play with that spiritual practice this week, to spend some time going deeper and then letting that essence come out a little more? So I want to close with a quote. This comes from James O'Day, who wrote the book The Conscious Activist, where activism meets mysticism. Spirituality cannot exist in a vacuum, ignoring social conditions or the plight of humanity. And activism cannot hope to transform the social order in the absence of mature spiritual development. Both must grow beyond any form of privileged exclusivity. In fact, they must each embrace a reality that joins them in service to individual and collective liberation. And that is what we're being called to do, is to join together in individual, because I can't liberate somebody else any more fully than I'm liberated, yes? Okay. And so that's why we continue to work with ourselves, but then we don't just work with ourselves in isolation. We also then say, how can I support the world in being more free? How can I help all of us, myself included, awaken to our spiritual magnificence? So we have an affirmation. Say this with me. I grow deeper and rise higher, living more fully now. One more time. I grow deeper and rise higher, living more fully now. So it is.